Welcome to Crossing the Stream. I'm your host, Eric.
And I am Jesse, and with us, we have Chris Somerfield once again joining us for our new series of videos.
Yeah.
How are you today?
Yeah, doing well. I took the long drive from St. Catharines to Welland to get here.
It's a horribly long drive.
I mean, it's 20 minutes. It's not too bad, but I had ABBA blasting, so I'm pumped. I'm ready to go.
That's
so
good.
Yeah. I'm full of, Waterloo and Money and all the good hits from ABBA. So I'm loose and ready. So
Perfect. So the last time we spoke on this platform would have been 2 years ago, approximately. What has changed? What is new in the life of Chris Somerfield?
You caught me at a time where there's a lot of change, actually. So
I planned it that way.
Yeah. What are the odds, right? So, 2021 is going to be an interesting year because recently, most people end up knowing me as being a part of the Davis and Delot team, but that actually
You
changed.
were a company man with Davis and Delot.
That's right. Yeah. I was like their right hand man, for a long time, since the inception, about 4 years or so, 4 or 5 years, right? So, but that's changed. So I ended up transitioning into a new group called Portfoliorealty Group. We're stationed out of Portaluzzi. So we got new offices being built out there on Lakeport Road.
Fancy.
So yeah, the nice aesthetic of that old style masonry brick mixed with some modern fashions, and we just wanted to go in a different direction of a really focused local boutique style real estate, ones where you can just kind of pop in, get to know us, have a coffee, have some wine, depending on the time of day, go look at some houses, talk local, talk about community. And that's what we're going for. So it's me, Scott Schweitzer, Emily DeSantis, Portfolio Realty Group. Check us out.
Awesome.
Decided to plug myself. Hope that's okay.
That's good. That's why we're here. No, that's that's good to hear that things are changing. What made you decide to go the boutique route? Was it-
Good question. So with David and Delot, as you know, I was their company man. I was a big part of the team for the longest time. And it's a solid team, number one real estate team in Niagara. They are that. That's what they are. So, but lately it seems like they're going in a different direction. And it's a good direction. It's where the team should go. So all the power to them. It just didn't really fit what I really wanted to bring to the table in the real estate market. And I sat down with Sean, had a heart-to-heart with him, and I told him that, the direction the team's going is great. It just doesn't fit my path. So we need to kind of go in different routes.
Right.
He was very understanding, for the 4.5 years or so that him and I ended up working alongside each other. We did a lot of great things together, and we'll continue to do a lot of great things elsewhere. But the big thing is that having nice, well-talented people in the real estate market in Niagara is ideal. So yeah, it just ended up going that route. So.
Good.
What an interesting time it must be to be in the real estate game. I mean, houses are just flying off the market.
Yeah. Another interesting thing, you're catching me at a time where it's the market just has been booming at the beginning of the year for the first 60 days of it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden March, it's we all of a sudden ended up hitting an inventory record where we had more listings in March of 2021 than we had in the last 10 years.
Oh.
Yeah. So it's a very interesting time right now. And just last week, they ended up saying that they're going to maybe increase the stress test percentage. So might end up alienating some more buyers out of the market. But
A lot of first-time buyers.
yeah. So it's an interesting time. It's a lot of highs and lows. I ended up working with a lot of local people. So it kind of is a bit bittersweet. I like to be able to kind of work with first-time buyers. Local buyers are trying to break into the market, and when you make things more and more difficult for them, it's not the most ideal place to be. So it's
probably a big influx from people from larger cities that have more capital to move around. And
yeah, I mean that's been the song and dance for the last couple of years, right? I mean,
absolutely.
the starting point of homes now, unfortunately, if you're a first-time buyer, it's $400,000. That's what you're looking for, right? Yep. So. And in those shores, there's sharks from investors from Hamilton and the GTA that are out there looking in the same price range. So you're competing against really big money, right? People that are like selling their condos in the GTA and then only using a percentage of that equity to come down here and buy things for cash. And then you got local people that are just struggling to try and keep up.
A lot of people that already have some kind of property are really catching the real estate fever right now too. Like, I couldn't believe it a couple weeks ago when my neighbor came out and said, "Yep, selling the house, moving to Nova Scotia." Like, really? Okay. And because he's like, yeah, somebody came and he already bought 2 of the houses on the street. He wants the whole street, he says, and he offered me way more than what he wanted. So, so he's like, I'm gone.
That seems to be a common trend right now. And that's probably what happened in March, is that the majority of people saw what houses were selling for in January and February, got bit by that bug. Everyone ended up listing in March. It's probably going to continue on in the spring. So, but yeah, like that's a common story, is Toronto people coming to Hamilton, Hamilton to Niagara. Niagara are done. So they just bail, and usually they go out east in Nova Scotia.
Yeah,
right.
It's so interesting too, because like my parents got that fever too, where like they looked at what their house was worth, and they already moved from like they moved from Bradford or whatever, it was more dense before, to like far north of that, into a suburb that wasn't that dense, and now all these people are coming in from the city. They're moving again to go even more rural. And like it's just this constant flow of everybody just spreading out away from the city centers.
And the pandemic situation has been interesting too, because it just seems like it's been an influx of people going north, right? Where no one would think of living in Northern Ontario, but now everyone wants
cottage country is now where you want to
live. Yeah, you want a bit more elbow space, like you want to socially distance, you do it in the woods, right? So a lot of people are just kind of moving up north to do that now.
And even your house that, went from being worth 50 grand when you bought it, and now you've lived there for over a decade and it's worth $300,000-$400,000.
Yeah.
You
like
now
4 times the equity when you first bought it.
Yeah, you could throw that into making your cottage a permanent home. You can, winterize it and do all the things and live this dream life.
Yeah, and when the age demographic of Niagara, especially the homeowners, skew in that retirement age, like this could be the sign of what things are going to be like for the next couple of years, right? A lot of people that probably own their homes for 20, 30 plus years, really looking at the equity that they have, and then finally living that dream retirement life of finding a cottage up north, or just buying an RV and just traveling coast to coast.
Yeah,
right?
I know somebody that planned on doing that too.
Yeah.
They sold their home for like $1 million or something ridiculous. They're like, we're retired now.
There you go.
That's all it took.
Yeah, and they just live off of that, right? So it's smart. I mean, it's hopefully that will end up creating the inventory that Niagara needs to kind of keep up with the amount of demand that's out there. But again, like I always just root for like the local buyers and try and get them in the market. So like the stress test thing doesn't really help.
No.
The amount of inventory definitely helps, but we'll see what happens in the spring, right? So I don't think we're going to get to a point where like the amount of inventory equals the amount of demand out there. So then we're at this balance point.
No.
But I mean, like at least prices from January and February are staying stable, right? They're not going up and up and up. They're kind of at this plateau mark right now, at least for this year. So we'll see what happens.
It also has been a huge push for the creation of new houses too, because ones on the used market aren't really any cheaper than buying a new house in some regards. So I mean, like I was building houses all last year, and you went from an interesting transition from pre-pandemic to like people were buying lots of townhouses and lots of like economical choice houses to like during pandemic, suddenly we were building all these single detached homes that were like 3,000 square feet. And there was just such an increase in demand because I guess the used market just couldn't keep up.
Yeah. I had a bunch of buyers that did that. We were looking at a bunch of resale homes and realizing that, you could buy a wartime house or you spend that same amount of money somewhere else and buy it somewhere new, right? So yeah, it's it'll be interesting to see what happens over the year. But I mean, I'm excited to see what happens. Everyone's nervous that it's going to be some sort of bubble bursting that's going to occur, but it's really hard to see that because it's just a chain of demand that's coming, right?
Yeah, and the one thing that's sort of against that idea too is now there's speculation that we're going to have mass inflation because of all the money that's been given out to people for relief funds and all sorts of like money that's being pushed out there to stimulate things. Now people have more money and more disposable income, which is just going to increase.
Over the last 12 months, with like more people staying at home and working from home, they save money on their commutes and they can't really go out and spend money doing anything. No vacations are really occurring
so
right
it's
now.
Spent on Amazon and
new
houses.
it was like us. It's like we were just working and nothing to spend the money on. It's like, all right, well, now we can probably enter the market because we got this down payment just saved up. Right? So there's some lucky people out there that were able to just continue to work and have that just kind of build up, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that is a lucky thing. So, and I mean, the thing too, me personally, I wouldn't mind the idea of maybe selling my house and then having enough money now for a down payment for somewhere more rural, because I kind of subscribe to that idea too. It's just an interesting thing where everybody gets to sort of trade places. People get to maybe get their first home, but then lots of people have had a home only for like 5 years can make enough off of it just to go somewhere nicer.
Yeah.
That's a pretty neat thing.
It's all about timing, right? Anyone that ended up buying their house even like 6 or 7 years ago is laughing.
Oh,
just
absolutely.
Like the amount that those prices increased is ridiculous.
Yeah, it's crazy how quickly it went up too, because the first house I got, the duplex in Welland, I got for $205,000, which is insane. Like the houses on the street are going for over $500,000 now, and they're not even as nice as my house.
Nope.
And then Niagara, what was it, like less than a year later, spent $320,000 or so, or $315,000. That house I don't think has increased nearly as much in value, but it went up so much before I bought it too.
Yeah.
Like it's actually a less nice of a house than the one in Welland.
Yeah. But again, that's an example of timing too, right? Like when January, like the first week or first 2 weeks of January ended up hitting, I was really curious to see like where this market was going to go, because we were in the middle of a gray lockdown or stay-at-home order or whatever the heck you want to call it at that point too, right? And then you see houses going up, and I remember there was one specifically on Garfield, which is like just off of Hague Street in St. Catharines, kind of like where Manchester is. So, not the greatest area, but, it's St. Catharines, whatever. It was like a semi-detached. It was up for, I think, $399 list price. It ended up getting 20 plus offers and sold for over $500,000.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, like that set the tone. It's like now, regardless of where this semi-detached is in St. Catharines, it's going to be worth $500,000, regardless of the quality.
And it's changing the buyer's habits too, because I bet you there probably wasn't an inspection. There might have not even been a conditional offer on financing.
Yep.
Like things got to move quickly.
Yep. Yeah, I feel bad for home inspectors right now because they're at home starving because no one can use them right now.
No.
Right? So
there's no time.
No one's gonna take offers that way because it's all multiple offers. But luckily, like again, the inventory is evened out a lot of that. Buyer pressure is kind of alleviated it a bit. So instead of seeing like 15, 20 offers on places, now we're seeing like 4 or 5. So we're trending in the right direction more or less. So.
One thing I want to talk about, I guess, is do you think real estate agents are living the high life right now, given the fact that their rates haven't really changed much? They're a lot of times are like 3%, 4%, 5%.
Yeah.
And instead of listing a house for like 30 days, now it's gone in 2 or something
you pulled
like
up
that.
in your Maserati, right?
Yeah,
I did. Yeah.
It's true though. I mean, my parents' real estate
pulled
agent.
up in my Toyota Corolla. So.
The economical real estate
that's
agent.
right. Yeah. Man, I can only speak on behalf of myself. I'm not living as high of a life as you probably think I am.
No. I don't have any assumptions. I want to get the inside scoop.
It's not all glitz and glamour like you probably see on things like social media and like Netflix reality shows.
But there's always those real estate agents that try to stick out and try to drive the newest Tesla or drive the newest Mercedes or whatever.
Yeah.
That's maybe a marketing strategy for their own brand.
For sure it is. Yeah. I mean, anyone that's really trying to break into that luxury or lucrative market, then you gotta dress for the job you want, right? So that's what they're doing. That was never my bag. No. I actually said this to some clients earlier this morning. So like a few years ago, I felt like you want to get into the real estate market, you really want to make it really well. Like you got to go after the sharks. So you got to act and dress like the sharks. You got to go after those luxury people, those out of town folks that have those deep pockets. But at the end of the day, like I like working with who I like to work with, right? So that's not really my crowd. I'd rather work with people that I really like and enjoy hanging out with. So like it's a bit on the lower end of the price ranges, but at least I'm happy doing it, right? Mm-hmm. So as far as striking it rich in real estate, not striking it rich because it all just goes back into like the marketing of things. That's anyways, fair. Right? So.
I suppose the only reason for speculating that it would be much better now is just the turnover rate of houses. Like you can sell those cheaper houses, which aren't really that cheap anymore.
Yeah.
And it happens fast.
Yeah. I will say, like, when you do see advertising or headlines of real estate agents talking about they had this listing, it was on the market for 48 hours and it sold 150K over asking price, as if they're tooting their own horn because they did something to cause that, it doesn't impress me, because it just tells me that agent ended up listing the house 150,000 less than what he should have.
Yes.
So was it strategic? Probably. Did they know what they were doing? Doesn't really look like it.
Do you think maybe it's just a strategy, though, to get people in the door?
Oh, 100% it is.
I think that's a fair strategy.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, right? When those prices go 100K, 150K over asking, what it does is it just tears the hearts out of buyers, because you'll get 30 offers on those types of houses, and I bet the majority of them are going to be buyers that like are just looking just at their max budget and throwing 5 or 10 in, just hoping that they can make that house work. And then when it sells for cash for 150K over, what is that buyer to do?
I think it's been that way for a long time, though, because even when I was buying my houses and things were not so hot, houses were being on the market for sometimes up to like 2 months if they were really not selling. There was still situations where ones we wanted were being bought for cash.
Yeah.
Like just because they were a good deal.
So I'm not saying that like the cash buying, like it's going to happen, but I mean the actual list price. So when an agent decides to list a house at $399 and it sells for $600,000, and then they gloat saying that they did such a great job for getting this number for their seller, that's not accurate to the market. And unfortunately, you're doing the real estate industry a huge disservice, because you're setting up expectations for buyers and breaking their hearts, so then they lose faith in the real estate market and just want to stay home and forget it. And you're painting a picture that the market is crazy, but the market is not crazy. It's just your list price is crazy.
It's a bit strange too, I guess, real estate agents talking about like how successful they are on selling these homes, when like really, in my opinion of a real estate agent, I'm mostly interested in them for their ability to steer me away from things I'm not interested in the first place. Like their ability to not sell me things is what's going to let me work with them to buy something eventually.
Yeah.
Like sometimes we've worked looking for houses for months or whatever. We just couldn't find the right thing. And we saw a bunch of them, and our real estate agent was like, "Yeah, this probably isn't right for you."
Yeah.
But I appreciate that a heck of a lot more than some real estate agents that just wants to sell like a used car salesman.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, I'm the same way. Like I want to be able to work with clients that I like and put them in houses that I know that they're going to love, right? So I care too much, and like I would lose sleep if I forced a buyer into a house that I personally didn't believe that it was a good fit for them. So I will be upfront and honest. I will tell them that, like, you know, this house is not going to be a good fit for you. You're going to outgrow this in 2 years. I know you like the flooring or whatever, but the reality is that this is not a good fit. We need to move on to something else.
The flooring's always a scary one.
Yeah.
They put brand new laminate in my bathroom, and I ripped that thing up, and I ripped up about 4 layers underneath it just because water damage.
Yeah.
That's the lipstick on a pig. Number one thing, new flooring every time.
If you walk in and you see that gray laminate flooring on the
yes,
floor,
that's what I had.
It.
Yep, absolutely. You're 100% right.
Yeah, it's just like you said, lipstick on a pig for sure. So, and it tears me up to say that, because I know my wife loves the gray laminate flooring, and I tell her it's like your taste is really good in a lot of things.
If you put it places where it can't get wet, you might be okay.
Yeah.
That's the gist of it, really.
Yeah, for sure. It's it's tough. It's tough for buyers, but I mean, I got a few that are working in a very tough, tight budget. So I mean, I always tell them it's going to be hard. It's going to be a grind, but it's not impossible. So it's just a matter of just staying on top of things, being flexible, and understanding what you really need out of a house, and just realizing that if it's your first house, you're just breaking into the market. After that, just wait for a few years and then see what you can do after that.
Do you think it's fair to say that the first thing that a first-time home buyer should do is look for a pre-approval with some kind of bank?
Yeah, absolutely. It makes no sense. It makes no sense looking at homes that are available for sale on the market until you know what you can afford, because you're just going to break your heart again, right? So you talk to your bank, you can talk to a mortgage broker, you can get an idea of what your pre-approval rate is, and then at that point you can see what your budget is and just go on realtor.ca and see what's out there.
And the other thing too is you shouldn't give up if, say, your pre-approval rate is lower than any house in the market too, because The banks want to work with you.
Yep.
So if you ask them what you need to do to increase that number, they will have advice. They'll talk about, you could have a look at all these different loans you have, and you could move debt around, and you could do certain things to
Yep.
make it work. Like when I bought my first house, all I had to do was change my, like one of the biggest things was change my OSAT payments to the minimum.
Yep.
Just for when I buy the house, and I can turn it back up after if I can handle the stress of it. But that increased my budget by an incredible amount.
Yep.
Just moving those payments around like $150 a month or something.
Yeah. That's why it's important to usually work with a mortgage broker that will
Yes.
at least work with you, because they will provide that roadmap for you.
Mm-hmm.
If they say, this is your number, but this is not the minimum of what homes are going for in Niagara, here's what we can do in the next 3 to 6 months to get you on track,
Mm-hmm.
right? So it's crucial to find a mortgage broker that's willing to work with you. And sometimes, unfortunately, like those mortgage agents at the bank aren't the ones that are willing to work with you.
No.
If it's an easy, like pre-approval getting going, great. But sometimes they're like, come back in 6 months, we'll see what we can do.
You can search around too. I mean, the credit unions sometimes will help you where banks won't.
Yeah.
I know Penn Financial is pretty helpful. We got both of our houses through them, but there's also Meridian and
Yep.
and stuff like that. So
Yep, for sure. Yeah, there's lots of options, and sometimes people don't realize that a mortgage broker is something you can kind of shop around for, right? See which one is willing to work with you. So
I always find myself kind of silent during these. I was more quiet during the.
I was
the real estate
going to
one.
ask. I was going to ask how you feel about home ownership.
So,
he owns a business. In
Yeah.
but I don't like.
It's true you don't own the building, but
That's the issue.
it's similar in some ways.
So I'm sitting and I'm thinking, after listening now and all the podcasts we did for Davidson's a lot,
Yep.
where Sean was like, "Buy now if you can get in, buy now." I'm like, well, shit. I don't know what to do. Like even take the fact that my significant and very nice down payment is no longer available because it's sitting right
Yeah.
here.
Yep.
It seems impossible for a self-employed person that bought a business at the beginning of a pandemic
Yep.
to even feasibly start. I just don't see it being feasible.
Yeah, you got a bit of an uphill battle for yourself.
Yeah.
So, I think if you end up spreading yourself too thin and trying to purchase a house, at least at this point in time, it's probably not a good idea.
Yeah, that's why I'm
Right.
not even thinking about it. But the current conversation right now is like if you're not, the prices are only going to go up. So it's a very, very depressing viewpoint.
Yeah, for sure.
And nobody cares about the chatels of a business, because when everything shut down, I couldn't get any help because I don't own the building.
Yeah,
They cared about the building ownership and not the stuff that was in it. So
yeah,
it was a flawed situation, but at the same time, when we looked at the business, buying the building was out of the question. And considering how empty the basement, the other unit of the building, has been for the year, it would not have been a moneymaker. So I feel as though the idea was, or the theory and strategy was fine. It just
yeah.
didn't work out entirely.
Just timing wise, yeah.
Thinking of the basement, is the stuff you do pretty much all residential, or do you do like business properties too, commercial?
It's mostly residential.
Okay.
I do dabble in commercial.
I was kind of curious about if you had an opinion. There are so many shops, including the basement here, where they're being bought up by people from the city, Brampton, Toronto,
the
wherever.
whole building was bought up.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, they'll buy up a building, and their go-to business plan is.
Wait, see if you can guess.
What do you think their go-to business plan is?
What is it? Just
Open a
tell me.
cannabis shop.
Really?
That's everywhere.
Yeah.
Everybody in this region is having that
There's
idea
going to
right
be
now.
11 pot shops in Welland.
Yeah,
Wow.
all at once. They're open right all at the same time.
Wow.
So the one that's going in the basement, I know the landlord who's opening the store. He has been trying to get it open since he bought the building last March.
Yeah.
And when he bought the building and began the licensing process, there was going to be 4 in Welland, which is, I think we can all agree, definitely a more manageable number
Yeah.
than 11.
Yeah.
Well, he hasn't been able to open,
Yeah.
and now he's on the cusp of opening, except the competition has over doubled.
Yeah, like there's about 100 feet away, there's another one.
And
That's-
there's talk of another one going on the street too. Like, how do you compete? There's
Yeah.
a reason why in
What is it
Welland
turning
you don't
into?
see a Tim Hortons or a Starbucks on every corner.
Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. I didn't know that they were ramping up so many of those shops.
The main
I
reason
think there's
for
more in
it,
Welland than there is in St. Catharines.
probably the
Probably.
main
That's the insane
Yeah.
part.
the main reason for it, in my mind, is so many people wanted to get into the game early on, but it was a lottery system, so very few people got selected to open up and have a
Yeah.
license and all that. But they scrapped that, completely gone, so anybody can apply now.
Yeah.
And it's just everybody who had that business idea is trying to emulate what they see in the big cities
Yeah.
here.
So what do you think? It's going to be one of two things that's probably going to happen. It's either the
have
market's
my
going to become oversaturated. There's going to be too many of them, and they're not going to last very long. It's going to be like a rotating door of businesses, where like almost like bars, where it's like every 6 months to a year, like they change the name of the bar, but the owners stay the same.
My theory is there's a few in Welland that are, I don't know if they're franchised, but they are brands. They're
Yeah.
not individual, like family-owned brands. Those
Yeah.
will be the ones to survive
Yeah. Of
because
course.
they have some.
Some know-how to kind of keep up and running, right?
The other thing that really fragments the market to me is the fact of how they get their products. It's not like other businesses where you work with suppliers.
Yeah.
The cannabis stores can only get products through the OCS, the Ontario Cannabis Store.
Yeah.
And that means they all get to pick from the same products, and they don't get to work and make any special deals with any suppliers or anything like that. So you're so restricted. Like, what do you have to offer people
That's
coming
different
in?
from the next person.
Like,
Yeah.
it's all about the venue. It's all about the friendly staff at this point. And
And the branding.
you're going to be fighting the brutal fight of being the friendliest cannabis store in town.
Yeah, you have the most inviting one. Yeah, because I guess there's probably regulations that like when you're selling cannabis, you really can't sell too much of anything else beyond that, right? Like it's just like the cannabis and some rollers and some pipes and
Yeah,
stuff, and that's
you
about
probably
it.
some merch,
You can't sell like Cheetos and burritos
No,
and stuff at the
no,
same time.
I don't.
right?
You probably couldn't. No.
No. And maybe that's what's probably going to turn into. Like once they realize that like there's an oversaturation of the market, eventually you could start buying pot at Big B.
Yeah, and there's a thing too where like if you're going to have cannabis shops, I like what I've seen in some of the states where it's more of the down to earth thing where the people like the cannabis shops get to work directly with the cultivators, so you actually have a distinct product, say a strain that nobody else has.
Yeah.
So you have an ability to market something different, and you don't use all of this like plain packaging because like everybody's treating all of like cannabis like it's this huge thing that needs all this red tape and all that. Like it's coming in like these bland plastic containers
Yeah.
and that everybody hates.
No marketing to kids, nothing like very
which
attractive.
is
Yeah.
fine. But
Yeah.
like the idea of like if I could go into the shop and screw the containers, I bring my mason jar. They have all the cannabis on jars and shelves, right? You pick a point at one,
the
they bring it
cannabis
over, they open
Yeah.
the jar, they take tongs, pull it out, and show you. You see what the product is. You can smell it. You can.
Yeah.
You know what it
I would
sounds
buy
like?
the
It sounds
best
like
one.
Amsterdam. Like what you're describing. I
That's
feel
not even like Amsterdam. That's like Colorado.
Well, I mean,
I think you're just describing bulk barn. That's what
Yeah.
it sounds like to me.
But
So-
it'd be so much more of a personal experience. Like even when you go to the liquor store, at least you can like see all of the, like the whiskey bottle has their heritage written on it and all this
yeah,
stuff.
yeah.
Cannabis
and you
is just-
have like some like taste tests and taste sessions
Yeah.
that exist there.
and
yeah.
cannabis, it's like a sealed container, no
Yeah,
information.
and when they announced the legalization of the whole thing, like I thought that that's the road we were going to go down.
It
Is that
might be
like the
eventually
Niagara
the case,
region?
but-
Like it seems like if we have this huge like winery industry and this huge craft brewery industry, it just seems like the marijuana industry should just fall in line with the same thing. Like I would love to see that open up where you can go to
craft marijuana.
yeah.
pretty much
You know,
and do a tour, right?
I think a mistake that I made when all of the parties were putting out their ideas when they were trying to get elected originally about cannabis, whereas you had the liberals, which were saying they were going to legalize it. You had the conservatives saying that they were not going to legalize it. And I think every other party had a plan to decriminalize it. I now realize that the decriminalization probably would have been far superior to legalization because it's overtaxed, it's overregulated. There's just so many issues with the way that this legalization had worked, and the government's greedy, and there's a bunch of issues associated with it. If it was just decriminalized and people could be free to do what they want,
Yeah.
we wouldn't have so many restrictions, and you could sell it the way you wanted to
Yeah,
sell
but
it.
they need to have their toes in the water, right? They insisted on being a part of it. They tried to make it like LCBO, and now it's just like Big B now. So
I think the general consumer would say that the only thing that really needs to be regulated is keep it out of the hands of children, and as far as the safety of the product goes, you must test it for pesticides and all the other things you don't want in it.
Yep.
So you keep grow facilities on the up and up.
Yep.
That's it.
Yep.
That's about the gist of what could have happened.
Yep.
But it didn't.
We'll get there eventually. I think people will just start getting fed up with the way the process is now, because you still got people, like a lot of connoisseurs, like they won't even touch the OCB stuff, right? So
No. I think that'll change over time too, because the issue at first was prices and the stock that all these suppliers have been stocking up because they knew legalization was coming. Stuff had been sitting in a warehouse for like a year and it was dry and it was a terrible product.
Yep.
The product's better now overall. And where was I going with this exactly? No, I don't know where I was going with it. That's okay.
Well, their logistics has
Yeah.
increased as
Oh,
went.
I know where it was. Prices. Pricing was one of the problems
yeah,
at first.
biggest problem. Yeah.
Now they're competitive. You can get an ounce for, I don't know, I've seen it for like $110.
Yeah.
Which, as far as black market prices go, you're probably spending that for anything good, I'd
Yeah.
imagine.
Yeah. So then it comes down to the sheer convenience of it, which I guess if you have 11 to 14 stores,
Yeah,
you can like throw
it's
a
everywhere.
rock and hit one. Like, it's pretty damn convenient.
And if
So-
you understand that at least the stuff is safer and tested and all that, and the idea that a lot of the black market stuff still comes from like cartels where horrible things happen.
yeah.
There is an ethical side of it.
Yeah.
The only brand of pot that I know in the States, but thinking about different ways of marketing, if companies could brand their marijuana, it would be a lot better, because like I've sent you the Coral Reefer, the Jimmy Buffett,
Jimmy Buffett.
marijuana stuff.
Yeah.
But the branding is nice. It fits
Yeah.
his tropical theme, and it
Yeah.
actually really works.
And I know all the rappers got their own.
Yeah, they got their own brands. Yeah.
So
yeah.
I feel like the branding could make a big difference.
Yeah, we'll get there eventually. Once everyone loosens up a little bit about the whole thing, realizing it's not as much of a threat as it is, like, you'll see that eventually. And again, I would like to see that. Like, I would like to go to Gretzky's greenhouse or whatever down in Niagara on the Lake, right?
That's a
And-
good.
yeah.
I like that name.
So and try some out, right? So we'll get there, right?
Can you imagine it being like a vineyard tour or something like that? That'd
Yeah.
be-
That's what I envision.
I
That's
can
amazing.
see.
I
it being
envision like
that.
you know Niagara Brewery Tour, setting something up where you can go to all the different greenhouses and see the plants and
that would be better than almost anything in the States. You'd have so much cannabis tourism because you're here. People from America would come over in droves
yeah.
because it's not legal in New York State yet.
yeah. I mean, and they're close by. Like, you have all this green space in the Niagara region where we really could capitalize on it if people can just loosen up, right? Like, people in Vineland and Lincoln and stuff that just don't want them anywhere near them. Like, they complain about the stink and like crime's gonna go up, but like happily like just getting wine drunk on the streets like it's nothing.
So-
like,
The stink, I guess, could be a concern because it is real. Like, I built a lot of houses in Font Hill that were maybe a kilometer away from a facility, and like a few times a month, it just reeked. They opened the vents, they did something.
yeah.
All the plants were in flower, and then just smelled
Well, I
the whole
mean,
neighborhood.
hate to break it to you, but like if foul smells are something that you detest, maybe rural living is not for you.
Well, I guess maybe it's just a specific acquiredness of certain smells, because even like manure and things like that don't stink. Like,
Well, it is a subjective thing.
There's-
'Cause I actually don't mind the smell of marijuana in general.
I don't mind it either, but I can see how it's more intrusive than most things. Like, I'd say the only thing more intrusive than that is like a chicken farm. Like,
Yeah.
that's a horrible smell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Or maybe like a slaughterhouse or something.
My hometown is really opening up to the marijuana farmers. There's a lot of tobacco farmers that are getting out
There's a
selling
lot of
their land.
There's a lot of illegal growing too in Tilsonburg.
Yes,
isn't
there is also a lot of illegal growing.
Somebody just got busted with how many
in an
plants?
old TRW factory that, to my knowledge, was abandoned. They just busted, and it looked like a hell of an operation. I forget how many plants. I'll see if I can quickly
I think they said thousands.
bring it up. But
Wow.
like, how at that scale in an empty, like, how do you hide that?
Well, it's a common thing. Like the whole, I always think back to the Molson Brewing Company building that got used as a big grow up. It was interesting too. Like and I think I was reading. I want to know how that resolved, but like this owner of the building who didn't know what was happening in one of the units brought like I think the mayor and like the chief of police and other people there for like gatherings and stuff. They
Thousands
get
of
together,
pot
and nobody
plants.
knew that they were right beside it the whole time.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Provincial police have seized thousands of cannabis plants from a commercial building in Tilsonburg.
Wow.
Inside, officers found thousands of potted marijuana plants in various stages of growth. 10 people who have not been identified were arrested as part of the investigation. All 10 have been charged with cultivating, propagating, and harvesting cannabis plants not at their dwelling, contrary to the Cannabis Act.
Okay.
There you go.
Do you have any interest in like moving into commercial real estate at all?
Like I said, I dabble in commercial real estate. It's not necessarily my wheelhouse. Like I'll work with commercial, but like I got like a listing right now where it's like it's a restaurant out in Dunville, like the old Johnny Famous out there. It's huge building, like
Yeah.
amazing. Like
Restaurant's a tough sell right now.
yeah, tell me about it. So yeah, I've had the thing for about 5 months now.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a real tough sell.
that's
So,
crazy.
Yeah, but yeah, it's always better just kind of work with residential, at least for me, because you're kind of dealing with more of like an emotional impact on things versus commercial. So I kind of relate a bit more to it. Again, like I like working with people that I enjoy working with. So
That's fair.
as far as business owners, God bless business owners. Like I'm one, you're one, whatever, right? But it's a different type of person.
And a different type of transaction.
Yeah,
Almost
yeah.
in the novelty of it, I think I always like the idea of just walking around, say, like a factory, like a recycling plant or like something like that. If that was for sale, it'd be really cool to see like what the selling features of that kind of plant
yeah,
are.
yeah. Those are always kind of interesting to kind of list. So
Yeah.
but yeah.
Like, oh, this building comes with a, 6,000-pound baler or something.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
All the commercial.
Did you guys hear that the Bayshore Group, the company that originally had the GM plant in St. Catharines, like they were in like provincial court for the longest time for what they did to the place.
Yeah.
Right? So where they essentially like demolished the place,
There
took
was-
all the metals out, sold them, and then didn't pay property taxes.
Bunch of
right?
environmental issues
Right.
too.
A bunch of environmental issues and all that jazz.
Yeah.
So it was like just this past Friday they pled guilty. So they got
okay.
fined up the wazoo.
Ooh, wow.
So which is nice. A little bit of like a.
How does that part of St. Catharines look now? Because it was just a big pile of rubble the last time I saw it.
It's still
A big pile of
still a big pile of rubble, but there's some progress. Luckily, you got some good people in Niagara City or St. Catharines City Council, like Carrie Porter, that are working very, very hard to try and make things happen there. I think other than the news of the Bayshore Group getting what they deserve, they also announced that they got an approval for a zoning amendment there to at least kind of try and get things moving with the environmental impact of the place, and then kind of do something with it, because it was just like this open air environmental wasteland that's there is just a bloody eyesore. And I feel bad because like years ago I had buyers that were buying in the area. I got one guy bought on Pleasant Avenue, and I'm like, see that GM plant? They're redeveloping that. It's going to be huge. Wait 5 years, it's going to be huge. And that was about 5 years ago. So it's like, I know he's looking out his window every day being like,
It's not
Chris,
what I signed up for.
yeah, this is not right. So, but yeah, there's progress happening there, thank goodness. But it'll be interesting to see, like, I just feel like there's a lot going on in St. Catharines right now. Like, Port de Lucie is ramping up like crazy right now. Like, they got a bunch of the buildings going up right there. If you ever travel down there, like the
Yep.
pier's all redone, pretty much ready to be open in the next couple of weeks. You got both of the old hospitals already torn down, and they're already starting development there. You got the GM site, so there's a lot of things coming down, a lot of things going back up. So I would like to see that continue and push. I would hate to see any of that kind of stall, because it's all steps in the right direction, but only time will tell. So.
Port de Lucie is an interesting one. Am I wrong in saying that property values there are probably second only to Niagara on the Lake in the region? 'Cause I remember them being
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you get people from out of town, they want to live somewhere in Niagara. It's usually Niagara on the Lake's number one if they can afford it, and then probably Port de Lucie. Like anything closer to the water is better.
Yeah.
Right. Then you got like Crystal Beach and Ridgeway down in Fort Erie.
built a
people
lot of
working
houses in
down there.
Ridgeway.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
That's why I guess names like Port de Lucie, Niagara on the Lake, and Crystal Beach, the water's somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, they knew what they were doing by naming them that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, like Port de Lucie is interesting. Like I love Port de Lucie. I love visiting it. If you ask Scott and Emily, they love living there. They live there all their life essentially. But to me, to spend that much money on homes that are 150 years old,
Yeah.
essentially, right?
I don't even know where any new houses are in that area. It's all
there's a
stuff.
few, but I mean, again, you're going to be paying for them, right? But some people that are just dying to like get into that Portaluzzi neighborhood because the people that live there love it. And if you ever go down like Lakeport Road now, like there's a bunch of brand new businesses and restaurants that are there. Like, so it steps in the right direction because it was sad for a while.
Yeah.
Where, like they just couldn't tear down all those bars fast enough. And then it was just nothing for the longest time. And now we're on the upswing now. So you got some great, like you got Lock Street Brewing Company that's down there. You got Cheese Please, like the charcuterie place. Got a Twisted Pigs down there. And then someone just bought the old Kilt and Clover, and they're going to rejuvenate that, you know. So it's going in the right direction. And then, of course, Portfolio Realty Group is there on Lakeport Road. So feel free to come by.
I was going to say, I heard there's a great new real estate company in Port Dalhousie as well.
I got to go for a walk down there again. I used to go there all the time when I was big into photography to take pictures of all the swans and stuff.
Yeah.
Lots of those. I think if I had to move somewhere close to the water, it'd be more around the Ridgeway area. Although there's like nothing for restaurants or anything out that way. Like there's one Tim Hortons in Ridgeway, a Subway, a pizza place. That's about it.
Yeah, and then most of the other ones that are closer to the beach are more seasonal.
Yeah.
Right. So,
but the beach is nice there. I like it.
It is. Yeah, everyone knows that.
Man, when it gets stormy, I've seen huge waves out there.
Yeah.
It's kind of interesting to watch.
Yeah. Well, like even Crystal Beach is kind of the same way, where like a lot of those cabins that were set up out there were really only supposed to be seasonal. And then eventually they became all year rounds, right? So again, if you want to live close to Crystal Beach, you could do it. But you're going to be living in a 150-year-old like cabin that wasn't built for the winter. So hopefully the person that owned it before you winterized it. Otherwise you are buying a real cold shack that's near the beach. So
I mean, we're lucky enough to have okay weather the majority of the year. So
well, at least here, but it seems like Fort Erie essentially mirrors whatever's going on in Buffalo, which sometimes is a literal shitstorm.
Yeah.
Right.
I remember. I used to work in Fort Erie, driving from St. Catharines, and every day I'd have to check the weather in Fort Erie because it could change so dramatically in that 35-minute drive.
Yep.
You mentioned the businesses in Port Dalhousie being stagnant for a while and then it all being on the upswing. There's a lot of place in Niagara. Eric and I and others have talked a lot about Queen Street, Niagara Falls.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And we are not property development people, but we always sit and think about what the hell we would do to rejuvenate a place like that.
Yeah.
It's now, I think there's 2 or 3 marijuana dispensaries down there, but then that's
2
on the same street.
Yeah.
They're right beside each other.
Like, I don't know what to do. And there's all these, some businesses are okay. There's a bakery. There's like
a great crepes place down there.
Yeah, there is.
Yeah.
But everything else, it looks like a great place to film a zombie horror movie sometimes.
It deserves more respect for sure. It has been a long time since I've been down Queen Street because I can buy pot anywhere, right? So I don't need to go there right now. But
11 places in Welland.
Yeah, there you go. Pick up a bunch on the way home. But yeah, like it's a really nice scenic street that deserves more attention, and I would like to see some rejuvenation happen there. But
it's an awkward state of like, there's lots of money flowing in to make the street look nice and like redo some of the infrastructure there, but the buildings themselves are either really overpriced for rentals for businesses to open up, or they're not suitable to like anything. Like we went to look for a business space, and we checked out an old bank, and like it looked exactly like an old bank. They were trying to sell us on renting out a small subsection of like an old bank.
Or the bank basement. Like they gave us the opportunity to be right by the vault.
Yeah.
Like none of it was redeveloped.
It looks like an underground chamberway that you'd find in like Paris.
Oh,
like,
wow.
It was just like dark and damp and weird ceiling heights. And
So Christmas 2019, we rented a small space on Queen Street to do holiday or Christmas photos with Santa and the Grinch and all that.
Yep.
And then after we had such a success, we thought, let's try to find a permanent kind of spot. And at first we talked to the company that rented us the spot for the month, and our price and their price didn't meet up, which is fine. It's currently still empty, so be it.
Yeah.
And we did look, and I talked to somebody, and it was the bank, and he showed us the upstairs, and it was not I think
It was an awkward.
there was an upstairs
Yeah.
part that was going to be the women's business organization thing.
Yep.
And then the main floor of the bank, which looked like was it RBC BMO?
I think it was a BMO.
So it looked like a BMO bank that had just been
Vacated.
vacated.
Right.
And then the basement with the vault and everything. But none of it, and granted, photography may be a bit of a niche type business, but none of it looked like it could be divided in any way that would work
Yeah.
for a business of any kind.
Because they're like, you could rent out this thing and then sublet it to all these businesses. But like,
But no,
how?
if you wanted to rent the main level, it was the entire main level.
And like to be more descriptive, there was probably like 10 rooms.
Yeah.
But they all share that you have to go through the main entrance, which was the opening of the bank.
Which is fine.
And like, it was just and they were all weird sizes. And
Yeah,
like,
we're like all the rooms, just like all the little offices, like
Yeah.
a mortgage agent office.
yeah,
and
like if
yada, yada.
one
Yeah.
person sat in that room and ran an office, that's what that room was meant for.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
You're not going to run any kind of business in there other than
But there are some.
I've seen some like business buildings that are kind of like that. It's more like an office share, maybe not as small as a bank teller's office, but like the Lincoln on St. Paul Street downtown. Like that's kind of a office share where like the front end is dispatch restaurant, then the back end it's like maybe like 6 or 7.
We
offices.
looked at an office share to do the Christmas photos at because I think I even contacted you asking about the commercial side of things. You referred me to somebody else.
And no, I referred you to Scott, which Scott had the office that we're currently in.
Oh,
So that was the one that he pitched to you.
Okay.
Yeah.
and we looked at this office share place, and because of how they were structured, it didn't work for us because none of the offices were big enough to put in a backdrop.
Yeah.
They gave us an open space, but said it might not be open for the entirety of the month. Like, well, we're not gonna. Like it wouldn't work. So having our
Yeah.
own space worked. I liked that space on Queen Street, the unfinished.
I wonder what it looks like
unfinished
now.
space.
When we rented it, it was just drywall, no trim, and a plywood floor.
Lovely.
That's what he said. He said we have no problem giving it to you for the month plus like 5 days to set up. They had no problem on the price, and we took it. We set it up nicely with Christmas attire and
Yeah.
Christmas whatnot,
Nice.
and it worked. And it was a shot in the dark when I went to them and I said, "This is the money that we have allocated. Can we meet in the middle?" And they said
Yeah.
no. And I mean, I guess it is what it is at this
Yeah.
point. I'm glad, based on everything that happened, that we didn't get a photography space that we wouldn't have been able to use for the majority of last year.
Yeah.
But for people that were looking to host their own podcast and didn't have the space, it might have been beneficial.
Yeah, I know that. I know that feeling.
Yeah.
the struggles of running a podcast. My God, like all the respect to you guys and like doing the podcast you've been doing for so long, and then like rebranding it to this. Right?
Technically,
Like, 'cause, man,
if you go by the other one too, this is episode number 78, which I think is crazy.
yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, because for What's Up Niagara, we did 13.
13. Yeah.
Whew, what a dredge that was. Like, I mean, it was enjoyable to do. Loved doing it. Loved the guests that we end up getting on. But like, it's a lot of work, and a lot of it just goes into contacting guests
And
lining
hoping
up
that they
guests.
show up. Which,
And
by the
hoping-
way, you showed up. So thank you.
Well, I mean, I've been on the other end where guests don't show
Yeah.
up. So yeah, like of course I would show up, but yeah,
No,
like
it's a lot of work to do, but you had the same theory that we do, that there's a lot of people out there that have an interesting story, or
Yeah.
interesting perspective, or just interesting people, and doing
especially
something like this.
especially last year where like I want to talk to a lot of Niagara people and a lot of business owners that had to go through a lot of crap, right? And I mean, a lot of them still are, so they have a story to tell.
Yeah.
And then it's just talking to driven business owners that are coming in with like these dynamic ideas that kind of push forward and make things work, like was great. Like being able to talk to Josh at Ludology and talk about all the things he has planned for that building, right? Like I don't remember how much of it we caught on camera, but even like
Yeah,
we
there's
stayed there for
a
like
lot of things that we can't talk about.
yeah, like we stayed there for like an extra hour,
Yeah.
I think, and he told us about all the other stuff he had planned.
Doing a lot of cool stuff.
A lot of cool stuff.
Lots of cool stuff.
Yeah.
I'll have to listen to it after the podcast.
No, you can't. He talked about it off camera.
Yeah, yeah. There's a couple cool things he talked about on camera, but there's a lot of really cool things he talked about off camera. So keep an eye on Ludology. That's all we're saying.
Yeah,
like
spoiler.
he's got some plans. So
Yeah. No, I think it's good, and I've always said that it personifies you. I think I said that when I was pitching it to Sean, and then here too. You're a picture on Facebook. You do your. I mean, I haven't been watching real estate stuff in a while, but you used to do really well done, social media posts and videos and whatnot.
Yeah.
But doing this, you're not just a picture on a bus stop bench.
Yeah, and I didn't want to be that because it always seemed to me that like when real estate is a people game, like it's kind of a personality game too, right? So you gotta get out on camera and get in front of people in order to kind of present that. If I was on a bus stop or on a billboard, you really don't get a feel of who I am. I'm just lost in the mix of every other real estate agent that has a bus stop. So, when we were looking for content, we wanted to get out there with some videos. Like the podcast was the best way to go. And then it was a happy little accident that like we just wanted to talk to local people and just got these great connections with local businesses. So yeah, and then like we got like a bunch of great connections with local businesses, not just the people that were on the show, but the ones that couldn't be on the show just because of scheduling. Yeah. So like we're still in good touch with a lot of great businesses.
It's almost like if you wanted to start up another one, you probably could, and you'd still have a ton of content.
We could fill another 13 to 15 episodes maybe. So it'd be interesting to see like if we did end up ramping it up again, it would probably be branded something different. So
of course you'd have to.
Yeah. What's going on, Niagara?
That's shameless.
Yeah. Is that like someone taking over a Pizza Hut building and like not really changing the hut or the sign, and people are they know what it was? That's what it's like.
Actually, I read an article. I don't know if it was last year or the year before, but some Burger King, I think in New York or New Jersey, lost its franchise license. Mm-hmm. So for a month, it was operating as Burger King, but it wasn't. So eventually, like, they didn't have Burger King napkins or ketchup, or the menu had to change because they didn't get their suppliers anymore.
Yeah.
For some reason, I remember something like that, but the business made it a parody of the business it was.
There's a lot of like pop-up shops that do not Starbucks or not McDonald's.
Yeah. Oh, yeah?
But you have to be careful when you're doing that, because even though it's technically parody, if you get a cease and desist from the biggest restaurant corporation in the world, you better...
You should probably listen.
Yeah.
It's not just a light warning, right?
No, it's not.
they have the time and the money to come after you. So yeah, maybe I'll just rebrand the podcast as something completely different if I choose to do it. So we'll see.
It's a good idea, and I mean I've told you enough, and you know it yourself, that if you weren't willing to invest the time or the money and to get somebody else to do it, that it's very, very easy to set up a very good-looking setup with a single camera and just an okay microphone.
Yeah, for sure.
I did a video for a real estate company in Hamilton, and they were just renovating their building. And I think I took pictures. I don't know if I sent it to you, but in their floor plan, and as they were doing it, they were building an actual video and audio podcast dedicated room.
Nice.
And it was decked out, so it looked entirely different from their real estate aesthetic. It had glass windows, so it looked like a radio recording
like a studio
booth.
Yeah.
So door was shut, it was all soundproofed and whatnot. I thought, like, that, if you that's really smart.
That does sound pretty cool.
And the agents could book it as they needed it, and the equipment was there.
Yeah,
it's
a huge selling factor, especially like if you're running a brokerage or a team that.
And that's what it was.
It
was a I can't remember the name, but they were trying to attract agents. They had separate offices and whatnot.
Yeah.
And the podcast area was a big selling point.
Yeah. We had that idea with ours last year, and we really wanted to kind of ramp up, actually have a studio. And we did for the most part, but we envisioned a bigger office, and we ended up getting a closet. So what do you want? So.
It was a very, very small cramped room. That's why it was very, very nice to be able to go to places like Frontier Barbershops on St. Catharines.
Or
Catharines.
Ludology. It was really fun to do things on location.
Yeah.
Would love to do it more, but yeah, maybe soon. So
that's the nice thing, I guess, about the setup we use is mobile enough.
Yeah, we could go anywhere, and we actually, to self-promote once again, we have perfected to an extent the the editing on the fly. So if you want something, if you wanted something live streamed on the day, we could do it multi-camera.
Oh, really? Wow. I was just gonna praise you for like the turnaround that we got on the episodes that we did, just because
that's called 3 a.m. Like,
I could feel it.
3
Yeah,
a.m.
I knew it. Yeah. I knew when you would text me at 6 a.m. being like the video is ready, it's not because you were up early doing it, it's because you were up all night doing it.
That's the way that I roll. That's the way I've always rolled. So
Yeah. It opens up a whole new avenue for turnaround times, at least.
Yeah.
If one of us is like operating the switcher and just switching between cameras and just all on the fly, it's such a better way to do it.
I remember we had, the Facebook page, Niagara 411. So we had the guy that runs it on, would have been like Christmas 2018. And the reason why we had him on was because he had made a post about his fridge getting repossessed before Christmas and all the food went bad. He'd been injured, so he wasn't working. Like, there was a whole bunch of things. But he made a post and like 50,000 people saw it. So I said to Eric, like, if we could get him on and then have him share it, like it would do really well.
Yeah.
So we got him on, and he agreed, and we got it set, and we thought, we can't wait the normal 4-week turnaround. Like, it's got to go now.
Yeah.
And that was probably the only time that you went home at like 9:30 at night
and finished it.
That
night.
Yeah.
But
it was time of the essence, right? Like, that was like the My Son the Hurricane episode that we did, because we interviewed Jacob on the Tuesday, and he was promoting a concert on the Friday that may or may not have went,
and it did end up happening.
Yeah, that may or may not have happened because
and it was edited on time.
Yeah,
I delivered on time.
Yeah, on time. So we released it the day of the concert, so it was good. Yeah. That's the thing that's kind of missing in the real estate world a little bit with like the videos, is sometimes the turnaround time is a little rough. So so it's nice that like to get something in like 24, 48 hours is pretty sweet. So,
but do you normally, like, for real estate photo and video, you're normally operating on a 24-hour turnaround for
sometimes
photo stuff, right?
Yeah, for photos, yeah. So it's just everyone's kind of different, right? So but yeah, like to be able to put together like the show as quickly as you did was pretty impressive. Well, so
thankfully we had 75 episodes of experience.
Yeah, you got lots of practice. Right?
Yeah, so it was good. It was easy, and the technology. Now I think we're getting lazy, because Eric and I have talked about how if Zoom can pick.
Yeah, so the technology that Zoom uses and other
to pick the camera that's live based on the audio.
Yeah.
It's almost doing a camera switching job that somebody else would have.
Almost better than somebody could do it, because it's not based on reaction times. It's just based on purely who's talking.
Yeah.
So if there was some company where Eric was actually able to do it with his computing skills, that could come up with a way that if every audio input was done in such a way that it was connected to the camera, you could edit 100% on the fly with no people behind the camera.
If somebody is a software engineer and they know a way that perhaps you can get something like a Raspberry Pi,
I think it would change
to do it
a ton.
Yeah, if you could get a Raspberry Pi to do it and take all the inputs that we need for our video production and run it through there and switch based on audio, contact me, because we'll
honestly,
link your GoFundMe page, because I'm interested.
It could honestly change the way that a lot of small productions are done.
If it's like a really intuitive solution that just simply works, I'd pay somebody to do that for me. Probably quite a fair amount, because that'd be so handy.
Yeah, that sounds great. It's a good idea. I mean,
it would put us out of a job. Yeah, sounds really great.
At the same time, it's almost a proprietary thing, though. Like, we could use our setup to do it, unless we really do want to share the technology with everybody.
If we could patent it, we could own it, and it'd be great.
Make a deal with the developer to sell it.
Yeah.
I don't know. Then everybody's going to have a podcast. Absolutely everybody.
Yeah, when you're making it too easy for everyone. Then
well, the amount of people, I remember listening to a movie review podcast back in 2009, 2010. And that was, they had their own audio player on their website. And my friend and I, we loved the podcast, and we started one. But it wasn't really one, because we didn't know how to host it. So we just recorded the audio and put it on YouTube. And it is still there, but I'm not going to tell you the title of it, because it's not amazing.
Try and find it,
but back then when you talked about podcasts, people were like, what the hell are you talking about? And now it's so much bigger, and it is unfortunate to say that everybody has one to an extent, so it is hard to stand out. But
Yeah.
they're fun to do.
Yeah.
The quote that I like is, men don't go to therapy, they start podcast. And I subscribe to that.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah. Yeah, I believe that.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Yeah, it's true. I mean, I think it's more of a generational thing, though. Like, I mean, I remember trying to pitch this idea to Sean, and Sean's idea of what a podcast was is the Howard Stern Show.
Well,
That's good. That's a good
pretty
point of
close.
reference.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like-
it's like what used to be like a talk show, but or a radio show or whatever, but just the inclusion of video and things
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah, I think he's more referencing like the late 90s, like late night talk show that
Yeah.
looks like a podcast, but it's
does.
a radio station or whatever. But
That's true.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, yeah, it's close enough. Sure. So,
And I think he opened up a lot of the ability to talk about more absurd things on people's productions, because a lot of the times it was really absurd guests and topics and
Yeah.
things like that. So it
Yeah.
opened up things for a lot of people.
that's true. That's true. He could very well be one of the godfathers of
Oh, yeah.
podcasts, right?
Absolutely.
So-
him and Joe Rogan.
Yeah.
When we try to interview older people, sometimes they don't get it. So we before, and we still could, had to go to a pre-production meeting with somebody just because he didn't understand that it's just talking.
Yeah.
Like that's what it is.
Yeah.
And I think he wanted to have his points really down. And then every so often we'll get somebody who just doesn't know what to expect,
Yeah.
or they show up and the cameras are rolling. They're like, holy crap, this is not a small thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, you gotta be able to kind of give people a leg up and give them an idea of what they're signing up for. I think that's what we ended up doing with ours, is like just giving them an example of one, being like, here's what you're signing up for, by the way, so you know what you're walking into.
Yeah.
And I always like to prep my guys when we were doing What's Up Niagara, right? So I wanted to let them know what I was thinking as far as asking them questions, kind of take them down the line. And it helped for a lot of the people too, like especially Jacob Bergsma, like being able to tell him, here's the questions I'm going to ask you. And he was able to kind of come up with like
He
anecdotes,
was like
very
a
good.
hurricane. The guy from My Son the Hurricane was like a
Yeah,
hurricane.
the most energetic guy we
Yeah.
had on the show, right? And he was like the best stories, right? So he was a great guest. And then you have people like Sarah from Community Crew, who's great, but she's done like the PR thing dozens of times, so she knows exactly what she wants to say. So she was very more being like, let's ask this, let's do this, let's talk about this. So it's like, it's fine, just kind of being more dynamic with the guest, right? So, but I mean, you guys know that. You guys know that like the episode changes based on whatever it does.
We have such a
guess you
range
have.
of guests at this point. Nothing phases me.
Yeah, for sure.
When before you came here today, was there anything that you thought you might want to talk about but you haven't mentioned yet? Everybody has the same reaction. To
Yeah,
be put on the
So-
spot.
One thing that I'll talk about that has nothing to do with anything,
Yep.
but has been on my mind for the last week, is so I watched Ace Ventura: Pet Detective recently, which is not the first time.
No.
Definitely seen it dozens, if not hundreds of times. So, but this one time I watched it, I couldn't help but just focus more on the point of view of Ray Finkel and like the odyssey that Ray Finkel, Lois Einhorn went through in that movie, and it's the big story that hasn't told, right? So you guys seen the movie, right?
been a
I
long
have,
time
but I have a
since I've
vague
watched
memory
Ace
of it.
Ventura.
All right, so Lois Einhorn is like the chief of police for Miami, right? And then, spoiler alert for anyone that hasn't seen a 20 or 30-year-old movie, she's actually Ray Finkel from the Miami Dolphins, right? And he essentially like stole the dolphin from Miami Dolphins and Dan Marino in order for them to lose the Super Bowl. But essentially, like the storyline of Ray Finkel from like day one is like he's a small town guy, gets to the NFL, he becomes the star kicker of the Miami Dolphins, he gets to the Super Bowl, he has that one kick that could win the entire game, and Dan Marino is the one that screws it up because he puts the laces in and not the laces out. So Ray Finkel misses the kick. Everyone hates Ray Finkel. He is a pariah in the NFL. He's booted out of Miami Dolphins. He goes back to his hometown. Hometown hates him. Death threats to him and his family, right? Family going crazy, right? So The family's going crazy. The mom is running into mental problems. She has no choice but to just constantly bake, laces out football cookies in order to kind of mend her mind. Ray Finkel essentially snaps and gets put into a mental institution. So he's in a mental institution for a few years. Then he breaks out of the mental institution and decides to change his identity. Grows out his hair, shaves his mustache, becomes Lois Einhorn, and somehow becomes the chief of police for Miami. Okay?
Wow.
Stays in the same city. So she's a chief of police Miami. A few years go by. It comes out later in the movie that apparently Lois Einhorn was sexually assaulting or hitting on essentially every cop in the precinct because everyone reacts the same way when they find out who she actually is. And then she comes up with this crazy scheme, now that the Miami Dolphins are in the Super Bowl again, to steal the mascot in order for them to lose. And then, for some reason, also deciding to kidnap Dan Marino the day of the Super Bowl while he's filming an Isotoners commercial. Kidnaps them both. Everything's going completely according to plan for this crazy person that's trying to make the Dolphins lose because it ruined his life. And everything was going according to plan until a pet detective shows up. A guy that talks out of his own butt is able to spoil this crazy plot. Laces out. Ray Finkel, Lois Einhorn, it's just a wild ride. And it just seems like that in itself should be its own movie. Like, if there was like an Ace Ventura cinematic universe, like, I would watch that Ray Finkel movie.
Would Jim Carrey be in it?
It would probably be like the end of Mandalorian, where he would just like kind of show up at the end as like a younger version of himself.
Okay.
You know, but like a CGI version.
They say that they're in talks to bring him back for one more, so you never know what could happen.
Oh, like Ace Ventura 3? The Return of Ray Finkel? Maybe.
The AVCU, the Ace Ventura Cinematic Universe.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's money to be made there. I mean, if you really want to dip into like the Jim Carrey cinematic universe, you could probably all kind of intertwine more or less. Like, if like The Mask showed up, like that wooden mask from the Mask movie showed up in Ace Ventura, like just go balls to the wall with it. Like, what does Jim got to lose now? Like,
That's very fair.
Yep. If he's doing things like Sonic the Hedgehog and Ace Ventura 3, like, he's doing it for fun now.
Yeah.
So,
Well, he's made his mark. He never thought I'd be talking about Ace Ventura or Jim Carrey, but like he was kind of against sequels for a while, but now they're talking about doing a second Grinch with him and stuff like
That's
that.
fair. If they cast a live action Grinch, it's got to be.
It's got to be Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
Too good.
He is that.
He hated the first one though.
I would too. I see exactly why
Yeah.
he hated it.
Oh,
Having to do the Grinch makeup myself, so I
Yeah.
get it.
Yeah.
But it was fun, and I mean, he would look on it with rose-colored glasses.
yeah.
He would want
as
to
he
do
probably
it.
does with everything. That's
But
probably
I-
why he did Dumb and Dumber 2, right? So,
But
just
I
to hang
tell
out with
you,
Jeff Daniels again.
The cinematic universe that I would like, and they hinted at it in his last movie, is I want an Adam Sandler movie where all of his characters come together. See? That pitch alone made you laugh. And they hinted at it. He did that movie on Netflix, the Halloween movie.
Yeah.
Where they brought back the
Happy Gilmore.
Ben Stiller character from Happy Gilmore into this, but he was playing the same
Yeah.
character.
Yeah.
So that means that they exist. And I think they were just doing it for laughs, but it means that they exist on some sort of
Yeah.
like,
They could be getting to the point
existential
where like
plane.
they want to make
and it
all those.
needs to happen.
Yeah.
I want Happy Gilmore to team up with Billy Madison.
That's
Yeah.
fair. The only thing that could have been
Does
better.
that not sound amazing?
Oh, I totally get it. The only thing that I think could have been better than that can't happen, unfortunately, anymore, would be if you did that with Robin Williams.
Oh my God,
That would be
that'd
amazing.
like
Yeah.
It's because I think
hurricane of-
they had a bit on Family Guy that was just like all of his personalities coming. Somebody like made a replicator of people or something, and there was just Robin Williams everywhere,
yeah.
and it was
Yeah.
all the characters.
Yeah. That's something. That's exhausting.
The comedian Frank Caliendo, who does a bunch of impressions, always said that he would have loved to have seen The Wizard of Oz remade starring Robin Williams and nobody else. And just
Robin
with
Williams
that-
does everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just hearing that alone, you're like, what the hell would happen?
Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
like,
Yeah. Wow. Yeah, man. The Adam Sandler one's very intriguing. I'm
Is it-
stewing on that.
yeah.
Yeah.
It'd
It would be
fun.
nice if they just like brought it more into it, like like Shooter McGavin exists in the universe, and you could even expand it a bit because like they're all buddies anyways and always sharing each other's movies. So like if Happy Gilmore and Deuce Bigelow end up showing up and meeting each other, like would that be that far fetched?
There was a spec script that somebody wrote completely for fun, and based it off of Grown Ups 3, so the third movie in the Grown Ups series, and obviously. And they wrote it around the production of Grown Ups 3. So it starts with a scene from Grown Ups 3, but then they pull back, and it's just Adam Sandler as Adam Sandler. And kind of.
Oh, okay.
And for something like that, that would be an interesting thing. But I feel like it would happen. I feel like out of all the things happening, that would be a balls to the walls possibility of it all coming together.
And a very big likelihood,
Yeah.
right? Like, I mean, Adam Sandler's got that carte blanche now where, like, he can pretty much do anything he wants. No,
and there's Shooter McGavin is a villain teaming up with, I don't know, like some of the devils from Little, I don't know.
From Little Nicky?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It would be an interesting go, and
Yeah.
I would be along for the ride.
Yeah, for sure.
And it'd be the Adam Sandler version of the Avengers, which is okay too. What a weird way to end.
Yeah.
I thought it was a good way to end. That was fun.
Yeah.
So I
Where
guess
can people find you? Sorry.
Where can they find me?
yeah.
Oh, okay.
Website.
So, we got a website on the go. I don't know what the URL is yet, so I'm not going to plug that yet. But for now, like, you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. I'm all over the place. Chris Somerfield. It's easy to find. You can Google me. I'm out there. So, yeah, you can find Portfolio Realty Group very soon. Keep an eye out for myself, Emily DeSantis, and Scott Schweitzer as we rule 2021 Niagara real estate. Wink.
All
Were
right.
you going to say anything else?
Nope.
I do have one more question.
Yep. I was going to let you do it.
You know the question. Right?
Yep.
Yeah. Who would you recommend we talk to? If there was anybody in your realm of people that we could connect with, who do you think would be a great person to have on this show?
Other than me?
Yeah. Anybody. Doesn't have to be real
Anybody?
estate. Yeah. Just somebody who's going to be just as entertaining or more entertaining as you. Nobody less entertaining. That's not where we're going.
Really, eh?
You're our flat line.
Man, oh man. More entertaining than me?
Or as entertaining.
So she comes to mind. So Naomi Knight is a pretty solid get. She does her own thing, like Real Estate with Coffee, and she's a good follow on
Okay.
like Facebook and Instagram. Like,
Okay.
if there's someone that puts my social media
Perfect. I love another real estate
Yeah,
agent, so I can
she's-
sit and
she's
say
got it
nothing
going.
for the first 30 minutes.
Yeah, she'll get you going. So she would be a solid get. So out of everyone, like, I mean, Scott and Emily are great. You know, you can get them on. They're good. But if you want someone that's better, yeah, Naomi Knight's probably the way to go.
That's a good
All right.
recommendation.
There you go.
We'll have to follow up with her.
Yeah.
There you go.
All right. Thank you for coming on.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks, guys.
All right. See you
next
guys.
week, everybody.
Adios.